Okay, what's going on? This is Jordan Albertsen. I wrote and directed The Standard, and I'm going to take you through the movie with my little commentary here. So let's jump right in. This is Nathan Vetterline. Found him because I did a short film kind of version of The Standard about a year before we shot this, and I found him out of Washington. And he just came in and he kicked ass, and I wound up using him again for the same kind of part for this movie. I should probably talk about the shot. When I went to rewrite the script, which became this movie, this was the first thing I thought of. I wanted to do just a long tracking shot, kind of like a Boogie Nights opening or Touch of Evil. And I wrote it, and it was about a 4-page. It's like the first 4 pages of this script, and it was really confusing for everyone that read it because it didn't make any fucking sense. It was like, camera pans over, kind of in and out of all these different conversations, and everyone, I think, was very confused when they read it. But once we showed up and started shooting, it came clear to everybody. It wound up being pretty cool. And when I was writing it, I actually went to the high school, to this location, and was walking the camera move while I was writing it. That way, when everybody showed up and we were gonna shoot it, there wasn't a lot of figuring out what the fuck do we do. It was like, it was all very clear and it all made perfect sense and it all just kind of worked. And we had scheduled a whole day for this one shot. I think we got it by noon. I think we showed up at like 7. I think we had this shot done by 12 or 1. And we wound up starting to shoot some other stuff that day, but it was great. I had a kick-ass Steadicam guy. I forget the fucking guy's name. But he came and just knocked this out, and he was fucking rad. I think Brian, the producer, found him out of Tacoma, which is like south of where we were, but he was a local guy, and he came and was really excited about trying to do a shot like this. This is kind of a Steadicam guy's dream to do a big crazy fucking tracking shot, and he came and rocked it. And the whole idea was to kind of open the film, kind of halfway introduce all these characters, kind of like go in and out of these bits of dialogue and keep it kind of ominous, and then obviously end it with this. So I should talk about the music since we're listening to some Levi's awesome score that's creeping in right around there. Levi Berkeley, who I'm actually sitting next to right now, we're in his studio. He totally fucking stepped up to the plate. He'd never done a score before for a movie, and him and I were friends, and he's just a super talented musician. I thought it would be interesting to kind of see how it would, how he would attack something like that. And my first idea for the score of this movie was to do like all acoustic guitar. I kind of had this, I don't know why, it was a terrible idea, but I wanted it to be like this kind of Cameron Crowe-esque vibe with this like nice acoustic guitar, mellow shit. And it was just, so Levi scored the whole movie that way, and it became clear that, tonally it just wasn't right. It was a bad idea on my part. And so he kind of went through again and rescored the entire fucking movie with this, what you're hearing now, which was more of like creepy, almost Blade Runner like fucking really cool shit. So it turned out much better than my original idea. I should talk where this whole idea really came from. When I was a freshman in high school was when I first got the idea to make this movie or to write this story. It was when Columbine happened. And it was weird. I remember going home that day after school, and my mom and sister were like glued to the TV. And, all the stuff with Columbine and the kids, coming out of the building, and the cops and everything, it was a huge ordeal. And I remember my mom looked at me and she was like, I can't believe, I can't believe this happened. This is just so crazy. Like, I do not understand this. And I remember sitting there and just thinking, like, this doesn't shock me at all. I'm surprised it actually didn't happen more often, because kids are just so fucking mean to each other. And I remember just instantly thinking, like, fuck, man, it just, not that it made sense like it was right or anything for it to happen. Obviously, it was this horrible thing, but it was weird that my mom, being kind of disconnected from, youth now, was able to, she was like so far removed from it that to her it was like so unbelievable. And that was definitely what kind of started this whole thing. And I originally started writing it as this movie that took place over the course of one day. And it was a lot more like something like Richard Linklater would do, like Slacker or something. It was just kind of in and out in all these people's lives, and then ended with this shooting. And it was just a completely different movie. But when I went back and rewrote it, this is kind of what it turned into. I wanted it to be more focused on this guy Dylan and his relationship with his family, or his father and his girlfriend, and the little struggles he's going throughout school. And by the end of the film, you realize that he's a victim. And a lot of people seem kind of pissed that I took that route with the story instead of telling the background of the guy that wound up being the shooter. And to me, it was more interesting finding out about this guy, and made the story all the more tragic. I don't know, that was the way I just wanted to attack it. Some people didn't like that, and sorry. This is Alex Frost. He's playing Dylan right now. Alex was great. I loved working with him. It was kind of interesting because he's in the movie Elephant, which is the Gus Van Sant movie that was kind of the first film to tackle the school shooting subject matter in a film. And he actually played the shooter in that movie. So it was kind of ironic that I wound up casting him as someone who winds up being shot. As a matter of fact, when he came in to audition for the film, I remember he walked in and I recognized him from Elephant, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, there's just no way I'm gonna cast this kid who is an elephant. I mean, the last thing I want to do is, give people more excuses to bring that fucking movie up when talking about mine. Like, I'm gonna stick somebody who was in it, But he came in and he gave an interesting read. It actually wasn't that great of an audition for him, but he introduced himself to me when he walked in the room, and I remember when he did, there was just this quality about him that I thought was interesting, and I liked it, and I knew I wanted to work with him. So he wound up kind of getting the part because of the way he introduced himself to me, which is probably kind of odd, but yeah, it was funny. I asked him, I was like, what the fuck are you doing here? You don't want to be in this movie. And he's like, no, I love the script. I would love to be in this. And I was like, man, did you read the whole thing? He's like, yeah, I read the whole thing. I was like, no, you didn't. This ends in a school shooting. And he kind of looked at me funny, and it was clear that he hadn't read the script, and I caught the little fucker lying. But yeah, anyway, so Alex. And this is Taylor Hanley on the skateboard right there playing Ryan. I love Taylor. Taylor was great. I have a feeling I'll wind up working with him again. This was a tough scene to shoot. I actually had a really hard time with this scene. It was hard to shoot. Alex, I remember this day, had this like 103 degree temperature, just something ridiculous. He was sick, and he had snot just fucking oozing out of his face, and he was coughing, and poor Marnette, who's playing his girlfriend here, she had to like kiss him and be close to him, and and he's sitting there with like snot dripping out of his fucking face. It must have been just horrible. So it was hard, it was hard to get these two, because we weren't able to rehearse the scene. Everything, when we shot this film, everything happened so fast. Everyone just kind of showed up when we started shooting, and so I didn't have the time to really work any of these scenes in. And I know they worked on it a little bit on their own, but it was hard to get that closeness of a couple and that love and all that with Alex and his temperature and the snot oozing out of his face. But I think they did pretty good considering Alex's sickness or whatever. But yeah, it was not fun to shoot, and I don't think they had a very good time doing it either. This is actually my old bedroom where we shot this. We wound up shooting this movie in the Northwest on Whidbey Island, which is where I grew up. And so when I wrote the script, I wrote it to take place in all these locations that I thought that I could acquire for free, or cheap. And so, yeah, this was kind of interesting. I just said, fuck it, I'll just shoot the shit in the back of my mom's house, which this is, the back room, which used to be my bedroom. And then when I cut out of this is the front of my mom's old beach cabin. She didn't live in anymore, but so it's actually the same fucking house where we shot all this stuff. This is Tom Duffy playing Dad. He's an old character actor. He's been in a number of movies. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, this is funny. I remember one of the first things Alex said to me when we read the script. He came up to me and he was like, I'm having trouble with something. And I was just like, oh, fuck, what's he going to say? I got to work out some character thing or some shit, and he's going to ask me what his motivation is or something. And he was like, what's with the tea, dude? I just told, hey, I drink tea. He's like, yeah, and coffee? No? I was like, no, tea. I just, thought it'd be a little different than coffee and something kind of interesting, like you and your dad, you're a couple of tea drinking guys. And Alex just really struggled with the fucking tea thing. He was always trying to change it, because there's another scene where he comes in and he's drinking tea again, and he just was fighting me the whole way. But yeah, it's kind of strange sitting here doing this commentary right now, because I shot this movie 4 years ago. I mean, I was like 21 or 22 years old and made this movie. And since then, we've hit the film festivals and kind of gone through all that. So this is a real flashback for me, going back and trying to remember all this shit. But Brian Robinson, who produced the movie, and we had been trying to get this movie off the ground for probably 3 or 4 years. We met in Hollywood, I think, when I was probably 19. We were both production assistants on this movie called Hollywood Homicide. And we kind of met, and he had said to me, hey, I want to be a producer. And I was like, well, I'm a writer-director. We should get together and fucking make this shit work, Brian was kind of like, okay, well, what movies do you want to make? Do you have any ideas or scripts? And it was a long night where him and I were both on the streets of Hollywood, had these like terrible lockups. So we wound up just smoking like 5 packs of cigarettes. And I just kind of told him all these movies that I wanted to make. And he, seemed to think that they were cool. And, so right then and there, we just kind of started working together. We started up this company, Oracle Films, and did a number of shorts, and we were trying to figure out how to get this movie off the ground. And we took all these different roads. We were down in Hollywood for a while, meeting with financial companies and all this shit, and it was just a fucking nightmare. I mean, we at one point thought we had like 4 or 5 million attached to the film, and someone over at MTV Films, I remember, was kind of interested in the movie, and it all wound up kind of not happening. And I was just so frustrated with the whole process, and I was so fucking broke and tired of the PA thing, and I was like sleeping on couches. I just said, fuck it, I'm gonna move back home, back to the Northwest on Whidbey. And I had met this girl that I was seeing who lived up there too, so that was another reason for me to go. And I just figured I'd figure it out, just find a way to get the fucking money. And if it was from family or friends or whatever, I would just fucking do it. And so when I moved back up, the girl that I was dating, her father wound up actually being the guy that financed the film. And we wound up doing the film for around $500,000. And it was great. I mean, it was kind of crazy. Brian had never produced a feature. I'd never directed one. We didn't really know what the fuck we were doing. And it's kind of amazing that we were even able to finish the fucking thing. But yeah, this is South Whidbey High School. This is my old stomping grounds. This is where I went to school. Yeah, so we got Alex and Taylor there, and this is creeping in here. This is Max Van Vil and Bobby Brewer. It's pretty great, after making this movie, we've all stayed in touch and been pretty close. I actually wound up sleeping on Max's mom's couch for like 4 months or some shit. Yeah, this was cool. This was a shot that I like doing things with as little coverage as possible. I like to shoot things in, kind of oneers, or just do it all off a dolly. I don't really like a lot of kind of over covered scenes, and then you kind of just figure it out in the editing room. So this is when I always knew that I wanted to just kind of like, I wanted to do it on a Steadicam, but we wound up just not being able to have one. And this day, so we just did it off the dolly. And Jeff Barklage, who's the DP on this film, we had worked together a few times before this on some shorts that I had done, some short films. He was great, because he showed up and we literally had no prep. I mean, we had no fucking prep. I had zero time to work with the actors. Jeff Barklage flew in from Ohio. That's where he lives. And he flew in, I think, 2 or 3 days before he started shooting. And we had just had some brief conversations about, what the look of the movie's going to be. And I mean, he'd never seen the locations. He had no idea what he was walking into. And so, props to him, because, I just kind of had all this shit in my head. I didn't storyboard anything. And he was really able to, he was quick on his feet, and he stepped it up. Fucking rocked this. This teacher character is based on a real teacher. I'm not going to say his name, but it's pretty obvious who the hell he is, especially to that teacher. And when this movie premiered at the Seattle Film Festival, it was pretty fucking funny, because that teacher wound up showing up to the premiere. And he came up to me afterwards and told me, he liked the film and he was proud of me, but I could tell that he was like, "You little fucker." I could tell that was fucking me. I didn't mean it in a negative way, man. I meant it in a good way. But yeah, so this is the part of the film where kind of sets Dylan on his little, soul-searching journey, trying to figure out what the fuck he's gonna do. Yeah, what's this guy's name? Yeah, Shelley Lipkin is this actor. We found him out of Portland. He was really cool. Same with like Jeff. I mean, the cast was the same way. They all just kind of showed up. I don't think anyone really knew what they what they were getting themselves into. You know, they knew it was a small film shooting in the Northwest on some fucking random island, and everyone just showed up, and like we were sticking all these actors in like houses and shit that we'd rented, and we had crew members sleeping at just people who were like donating rooms, and it was crazy. And Brian and I had rented this house that we were going to use as, it was like a 3-bedroom house, and we were going to use it as a production office slash me and Brian's house. You know, we were going to live. And one of the rooms we used as our editing bay. I flew my editor Sean Olson up from California, and so he was kind of stationed in this little editing room. So I'd be shooting the film all day, and then I'd come home, and Sean would be working on the scene from the day before. It was great, but that house wound up becoming this just giant party central where everybody just kind of showed up after every day that we were shooting, and cast and crew and everybody, and we just kind of party the whole time. I think that was the only way that kept people from quitting the movie. No one was getting paid what they should have been, but goddamn were they having a good time. These two guys are great. This is kind of weird that when they came into for the audition, this was out of Portland, and there were about 4 actors I had cast out of Portland, and the rest of them were mostly out of LA. But these two guys came in, and they were sitting together. I don't think they knew each other, and they were, you know, gonna read for these parts. And I had like a reader that would normally read with one of the people. And I saw these two kids just sitting out there, and I was like, hey, why don't you guys just fucking read, you know, each one of these parts, and you could just do this together. We can just knock off 2 auditions in a row. And the kids were like, yeah, okay, whatever, you know. So they came in, and we were shooting we were shooting it and everything, and they just started doing this together. And I'd seen a bunch of other kids reading for those parts, but like instantly there was this chemistry with these 2 goofy guys, and it was just funny. It was just instantly funny. I thought they were great. That guy there to the right is Paul Benz. We grew up together. He's one of my best friends. He's a great actor. Yeah, all this stuff was pretty true, man. All this dialogue and this kind of casual skipping, going to smoke weed, you know, trying to fuck your girlfriend at school. All this shit. It was all based on me and my buddies and stories I'd heard, and it was this is kind of how high school was for me. It was pretty chill and laid back, and that was one of the hard things with this script. I knew that I wanted a very real high school vibe, you know, real dialogue, real situations, but I didn't want this like melodramatic shit in there. I didn't want it to be just this, you know. So it was kind of a clash in terms of tone, and it was hard to even out. And, you know, I didn't want it to feel like Fast Times at Ridgemont High with a fucking school shooting at the end, or like American Pie with a school shooting at the end. I wanted it to be kind of real and funny, you know, and, you know, because when you're in high school, shit's just kind of funny. You do goofy things and you're fucking off, you know, at least it was for me. And that was one of the biggest challenges of the script, and also editing the film, you know. It kind of goes back to that, my first idea for the score, having it all be this acoustic shit, you know. It just didn't work, and as soon as we applied the other score to it, it kind of evened and balanced out the tone with this, you know, more kind of, you know, little creepier score. This is the Village Pizzeria. This is I worked here for about 5 years. This is another location when I wrote, I knew I could, at least hoped I could get for free. And sure enough, the owner let us be there. Sean and Tony, those 2 guys worked there. I just kind of told them to stick around and I'll stick them in the movie. They were like, okay, man, whatever. That's Patrick Moot. He's another old friend of mine from high school. He's actually ends up being in this movie twice, completely by accident. Something fucking happened where I'd asked him to take this part or something, uh, I forgot that I told him, and he showed up, and I was like, oh well, fuck, okay. And then and then later on in the film, during the shooting, he kind of wound up being somebody else where he gets shot. That's kind of funny. Whatever. A lot of people didn't get that. He took all the money and stuck it in the tip jar. But he was stealing money, little fucker. Yeah, this is in downtown Langley on Whidbey Island. It's beautiful. One thing when I decided to shoot on the island, I knew that I didn't want to show a lot of it, like with the ferry and all that, and really establish it as like this island. Because I didn't want to make this something that was so specific, like this is an island story or something. I wanted it to be accessible to anybody who would watch the movie. I mean, given the subject matter that this movie deals with, I knew it needed to be something that could be accessible to a bigger audience. So yeah, this is one of the only scenes where you really see water, which is the Puget Sound. I had to show it. It was just so beautiful. Marnette's really good here. So is Alex. But yeah, it's kind of funny, so you get these two people, they're having this conversation that's very serious, and he's talking about something so trivial, this my high school paper, my God, life is so fucking hard, and it winds up being kind of funny. But the truth is, when you're in high school, that is the shit that's like stressing you the fuck out. You're stressing about that kind of bullshit. Yeah, this is pretty great. All four of these guys had fun shooting this, and Bobby thought he was being pretty sneaky. When we set up the camera, we mounted it on the hood and parked the car, and I had a camera guy that just turned the camera on, and I was over by the monitor, and we had this fake weed that we had made for him. And Bobby, who's the guy in the back to the right, he took the fake weed out and replaced it with some real dope. And he did it thinking that no one would know about it, because I was pretty strict and hardcore about, like, you guys can't fucking smoke pot on set, blah, 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 But the one thing Bobby didn't realize is that that entire car was fucking mic'd up, and I had headphones on and was listening to everything they were saying, and I just didn't stop them because I thought, it's like, well, fuck, whatever. They're the only guys in this car. They're the only guys that are going to know what they're doing. So I'll tell you right now, they might not be happy about me telling you, but those guys are smoking weed right there. Yeah, this was funny. Yeah, I think this one's name was Michelle. And she was really funny. She was in the Goonies. She had this scene that was like cut out of the Goonies where she, like, her and her husband owned this store or something, and I remember seeing that on her resume, and I was just like, I gotta get this, I gotta get this chick who was in the Goonies, even though she was cut out of it. It was just kind of funny. And she showed up, so she had all these great stories. She was talking about Richard Donner and all the kids from the Goonies, and plus she was great. And she was a trooper too, because Bobby, when we were shooting that scene, was just so fucking crude. And the guys were, the script was all there, but I gave the guys free rein to really, make it more real. Like if they felt like saying something in the middle of a scene, I was like, well, just fucking say it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I'll tell you to not fucking say it again. But that particular scene, I think they were so stoned that Bobby just was not holding back, and he was just saying some of the gnarliest shit, and she had to just sit there, and I think she was a little offended, but what are you gonna do? This is Orly Shani is her name. She was such a good find. I was really excited about her when she came in and read. She just had this quality about her, this just natural, cool friend quality, and I thought that her and Marnette worked really well together. Because I think I know Marnette has a lot more experience as an actor and had worked in more films, but Orly just had this kind of raw, natural talent, and it was so cool. And she was really great, and these girls also, they were bouncing a lot of shit off each other, and yeah, they had fun shooting these scenes. Yeah, this whole part of the movie, this standardized testing, all this shit, it was in the film a lot more before. I wound up cutting a few scenes. I just wasn't really happy. I wasn't stoked about the writing, and that's my fault, obviously. And I think that I didn't have enough time to work with the actors on it, so it just. And plus, at the end of the day, it just wound up being this like subplot that was in the film, and it kind of felt like it was, what the fuck is this in there for? This is a movie about this kid and these guys and his girlfriend and this mystery character Jeremy, and just having that other aspect of it felt a little awkward. So I wound up cutting the majority of those scenes. Oh, this was fun, man. This this was one of the scenes in the script that when I wrote it, it was so, it was funny, and and when we shot it, it just wound up turning into something completely different. It got just turned into this hilarious fucking scene. I think it's hilarious. I think I ruined quite a few takes of Slade's. Slade's the one playing the manager there, because he was making shit up and saying some of the funniest and then Alex is sitting across from him, trying to be serious, and oh my god, everything Slade was making up was just so fucking funny. Yeah. But this was this area here, this where we shot this, actually wasn't at the grocery store. It was this little office space where my dad had worked at, and they had let us kind of go in there and clear out one of the rooms and make it our own and turn it into this grocery store kind of back office set. And I know the actual grocery store that we shot at, the owner, Jim Springer, was so cool. I had worked there for a couple of years, but it was quite a while back. And when I asked him if we could, hey man, I'm making this movie. Can we please shoot at the grocery store and we'll work something out? And he was so cool. He was literally like, yeah, dude, cool. I don't know if you realized that, this was going to be like, trucks, and we were shooting on film, and it was, kind of a big deal with a lot of people, like 50 people on the crew and all this shit. But he was just so fucking cool. He literally just kind of gave us the keys and said, yeah, man, be out of there by 9. That's when we open. You can have it, He just kind of gave us the keys, and that was that. And he wasn't even there. He didn't show up. He was just so cool. But yeah, man. Thanks, Jim. Alex is funny there. So this is my dad's Mustang, and we shot this after Tom Duffy, who plays the father, this one little shot here of Alex getting in the car. We shot it after Tom had left, so that's actually my dad driving the car. My dad's little cameo, playing the father in his own fucking Mustang. Oh my god, this day was hell. This is a fucking nightmare. Do you remember this, Levi?
No.
Oh my god. Well, this is Poor Man's Process, which is where you do it on like a stage, and you kind of create all the lighting, and you're not actually at night driving. You fake it. And we knew we needed a barn or something. There wasn't like a sound stage where we could shoot this, and a couple of the guys from the crew had gone and scouted this barn that we were supposed to use to shoot this. And so we fucking show up at this barn, and it's like half the size that we were told it was going to be, and it's got holes in it and shit. It's got like boards missing off the walls and everything, and it's the middle of the fucking day. We're going to shoot this. I mean, it needs to look like night, so we're trying to figure out what the fuck this is going to work. And there was like a big table saw in the middle of the barn, and I mean, there was no way we could have shot it there. So we kind of I was all fucking pissed off, and I told my assistant Nick, it was like, Nick, go to there's a small airport on the island, and I was like, go to fucking airport and see if you can get us a hangar or something that we could use. And so sure enough, Nick took off and just went knocking on doors, and while he was doing that, I moved the whole crew. We went to the high school, and we shot this quick little shot out front. And I get a phone call from Nick, and he's like, yeah, I found these people. They've got like their own personal airplane, and they've got this giant fucking garage, which is like their own airplane hangar. And they're like, yeah, no, you can come in here. We'll take our plane out of our garage. We'll completely fucking clean everything out, and you can shoot your movie here. We didn't even know these people, and they were just so cool about it. They just gave us their. So after all that shit that morning, we wound up knocking off another scene, and then we went to this hangar, and we ended up shooting that Poor Man's Process, and we got it all done. I think we still made our day. I think we were probably even early. We moved pretty quick, but Jeff Barklage, he loves doing Poor Man's Process. He can create everything. And I thought he did a really good job. It looked great. Okay, the blow-up doll. I get asked a lot of questions about, like, what's with the fucking blow-up doll? Like, where'd that come from? And growing up, one of my best friends, his name was Dane, and we were just digging through his dad's closet, and we found this fucking blow-up doll, and I think it was like a joke or something. I don't think his dad was all into the blow-up doll shit or anything, but his dad had this fucking blow-up doll, and we were these kids that found it. We were like, we thought it was fucking hilarious, so we blew the thing up, and we'd always fucking throw it around and shit, and I just remembered that. I thought it was funny, so when I wrote this, I threw it in there. I don't think Dane's seen the movie yet, but when he does, it was your dad, buddy. It was all your dad. This little thing that they're about to do with the skateboard was something that they just kind of did while we were shooting this. Taylor just kind of grabbed his skateboard. These guys are both good skaters. He kind of hops up, falls off the board, and then Alex just kind of jumped on. I was like, oh, what's he going to do? It's like, what the fuck? These guys are like Tony Hawk and shit up in this bitch. This was a shot that I was pretty stoked about. We'd worked it out, where it's like we see these kids, checking out the girls, and I knew I wanted to like bring Alex and Taylor into these guys and kind of do a rack focus thing, and Jeff and I just kind of wing this whole fucking deal, and I remember thinking this was pretty rad. Yeah, so you see all these like kids walking around, all these background kids. There were like these 20 kids that showed up, I swear, every fucking day, and they didn't get paid. I think we fed them like hot dogs or something. They showed up every fucking day, man. They were like so goddamn dedicated, and they were just these total troopers, and they made this movie. They really did. I want there were days where I wanted 100, 150 kids, and we just weren't able to get get background people. We couldn't afford to do it the right way, where you hire people and give them $80 a day or whatever, and couldn't afford to do that. So we tried all sorts of other things. And when we shot at this high school, I think for 2.5 weeks, and after like the second or third day, half the fucking kids figured out, like, this is not fucking fun. I don't want to show up every day and not get paid and sit around and maybe wind up being in this movie. So we wound up just having these like same 20 kids that fucking kept showing up, and like, I can't even thank those little fuckers enough, man. They saved this movie. They were just dedicated. It was great. Okay, the sex scene. Yeah. This actually happened. I'm not going to name names. It wasn't me. I wish it was, but this is something a couple friends of mine did in high school. They fucked in this dugout. I thought that was pretty rad thing when you're in high school, man. You wind up getting laid in the dugout. Also a little Fast Times at Ridgemont High homage going on there. But Taylor and I had talked at pretty good length about this scene, because we knew that it was, it's a scene that people might talk about, and wanted to make it sexy and memorable and playful. And him and Lindsay, I think, wound up rehearsing this scene quite a few times. So they had it down. And he was pretty proud, like this one-handed pop. Yeah, he worked on that for a while too. I think they were rehearsing that. What do you say? I remember Jeff was hating me that day because we had scheduled to shoot it in the morning, and the sun was all fucking bad, and we didn't have enough lights, and he's trying to use shiny boards and all this shit just to pop enough light into that dugout. And then, oh god, he was fucking hating life that day. But hey, Jeff, you pulled it off, man. It looks pretty goddamn good. This was a scene that I really had a hard time with. I fucking shot so much coverage for the scene. I don't know why. I don't know what the fuck was going on. It had nothing to do with performance. Paul was great. Him doing his little wiggly pencil thing. That's all Paul. That was in the script. Alex was great, and Nathan was really good too. But I don't know. I know that the guy that wound up playing the teacher in the opening of the scene, his name was Rick, and I had to recast that part the night before we shot it. We had wound up getting a prominent Seattle musician who was the bass player in a pretty huge band back in the day, and he was going to do a cameo. I'm not going to say his name, but he was going to do a cameo for us and play the teacher, and I was just fucking beside myself, because growing up in Seattle in the 90s, this band was about as huge as it gets. And he ended up, he wasn't able to do it for whatever reason, and we found out the night before, and I had to recast it, and I was fucking pissed. I was so fucking pissed. And I had to cast somebody from off a headshot. I wasn't able to push the scene back in the schedule because we were at the end of our kind of allotted time that we had at the high school to shoot. And so I had to cast just somebody, just anybody. I needed a fucking guy, so I went through a bunch of headshots from local people out of Seattle and just fucking at random kind of picked somebody, and Rick showed up, and ended up doing it. That's just the way it goes sometimes, but god damn it, I was fucking pissed. So I think that was probably my way of dealing with it, was just, covering the fucking shit out of the scene, I guess. I don't know. This was a great scene. Alex and Nathan are really good in here. Nathan has this interesting quality about him. Not that he, looks like a kid who would commit murder or anything, but there's just this quality about him that when I first met him, I instantly knew that he was right for the part. I don't know what it was. He just had this fucking look in his eyes, man. And I guess I was never able to really tell what it was he was thinking about. And it worked. Bobby actually gave Max a Charlie horse right there. And him limping, I think, is kind of a real thing. Look at this. It's Taylor Hanley. Look at how cool this motherfucker is. Smoking a cigarette. Looking at some chick walking by. It's like, yeah, baby. That's my boy, Tay. And that's all Taylor, too. I didn't tell him to do any of that shit, you know? Just was like, yeah, sit in the car. They'll walk around the corner. We'll have this dialogue. And Taylor, he always does stuff like that. It's these like little things that he'll just kind of, you know, he'll be sitting there and he doesn't like ask you a bunch of questions, but he'll just kind of be sitting there thinking about it, and he'll look at what his surroundings are and that cigarette and that girl, and it's just kind of how he rolls. And the thing that was also great about Taylor is I would do a lot of takes with him, not because he was like blowing takes, but he was giving me something like wild and different every single take, you know, and I loved it because they were always so fucking great. And yeah, Taylor, man, fucking, he's great. Yeah, I remember Marnette and Orly were worried about this scene, and they came up to me and they had kind of worked out some of this dialogue. I don't even think that whole line was in the script, the whole have a guy, blah, blah, blah. I think this is just kind of them. And they were worried that the two scenes were too similar, the two classroom scenes, which they are. I kind of wanted them to be. I wanted that kind of monotonous high school, fucking every day's the same, blah, blah, blah kind of vibe. But, you know, they were concerned that one of them might get cut because they'd be too similar. And I was like, okay, I don't, you know, it's not going to get fucking cut, but whatever. So they wanted to play with the dialogue to make it a little different. And I was cool that I liked what they did. They came up with some great stuff. Now this spot where they're driving to, that they're calling the spot, it was the spot. Paul Ben's back there to the right. Him and I went up to that spot many times, man. In high school, this was kind of where you'd go, you know. You'd go and, you know, skip school and go up there and smoke pot, or, you know, you'd sit out and watch the stars and just fucking, you know, take girls out there. And, you know, it was just great. It was this, it seems like every small town has like a lookout or something like this, and this was ours. So it was pretty cool. I got to shoot there. But speaking of, I might as well talk about what happened here. This was pretty big giant fucking nightmare. We go out to this location that someone on the crew had cleared, and let me just say, from that last shot to this one, two completely different fucking locations. What had ended up happening was we showed up, all our trucks and shit, and we thought that we had cleared this lot to shoot. And so we, you know, we're setting everything up, and we're fucking putting up our jib and all this, you know, the cars pulling up, all our trucks, we're doing breakfast, and, you know, the catered lunch is getting ready to rock, and all of a sudden the cops roll up, and I'm like, oh fuck, what, you know, what the hell is this? So Brian goes over and he's talking to the cops, and I'm kind of watching this out of my peripheral because we're shooting the scene. And Brian kind of looked over at me, and I remember he gave me this look, and it was just this look that I did not want to have thrown at me. I could tell something was fucking not good. And what we wound up finding out is that the lot we had cleared and had had, gotten permission to use was because these lots were all really small up there on this chunk of land. It's in a neighborhood, and the lot we had cleared was the one right next to this fucking lot, and it was a fucking nightmare. And I had shot up to that point everything, except for that money shot with the jib shot when they're walking up to the edge. And so the cops, they were cool. I mean, they knew me, and a lot of them had helped, working on the film at that point. But they had to kick us out of there, and I had the whole jib and everything set up, and I ended up just kind of telling the actors, like, well, let's just fucking shoot this jib shot anyway, and let's just fucking do it. And they were all down, we did it all MOS. We didn't shoot any sound. We made it look like everyone was like breaking shit down, and I got like 3 or 4 takes of that that jib shot, and the cops were kind of like, what are you guys doing? We're like, well, we gotta fly the jib a few times before we can break it down, because the girder cables on the rotary, just make all. And they were like, oh, right, well, whatever you gotta do. So we just kind of had the actors walk it, and we did it. And what ended up happening right after doing that, I was kind of like, well, now what the fuck do I do? I had to shoot this bit here with Taylor and Alex, talking about what they're talking about and all this. And this woman who happened to be in the neighborhood walked over, and she was like, hey, you guys are getting kicked out. This is horrible. And it was like this bad thing. And she just said, hey, I've got this property that's around, there's a couple miles away. She said, but the view, the water view is kind of similar. And I just kind of was like, okay, fuck it, let's go. And, the whole crew just kind of picked up, and we just went. And I hadn't even looked at it yet. I had no idea if it was going to work. And what it was like maybe 4 feet of land that had that view. And then there were just bushes and all this shit. But we had to make it work. So I wanted to make my day. I wanted to finish the scene. So that whole bit where they're having that conversation, all this stuff right here, was at another location. And we had a big move and everything, and we ended up making our day. I remember Jeff was like in the fucking bushes holding the camera with like, thorns in his fucking ass, just trying to like get those shots. It was pretty funny. Oops. But yeah, we wound up making our day. This was based on a real thing. When I was in school, some guys did that. It wasn't a blow up doll, but it was like this mannequin thing that had like all these skater clothes on it, and it ended up being kind of funny. It was like this prank, and we all knew they were gonna do something, and they started screaming and just like threw this weighted doll thing that looked like a guy. And everyone was screaming. All these teachers are running out. It was this, it was just like these guys who were all fucking stoned just thought the shit would be funny. I thought that it was. So, yeah. So I threw that in the script. Oh, am I hitting that? The late great James Callahan playing the principal of the high school. He is no longer with us, unfortunately. But he was great, and I loved all his old stories. He'd been on all these TV shows and old movies, and it was cool having someone like him around when we were making this film, because we were just a bunch of kids running around trying to figure out how to make a movie, and I think for him it was a real kick, and it was fun working with James. I liked him a lot. He was a good guy. This scene is based on something that happened to me when I was in high school. I was in this class, and I was probably stoned or something, I don't know. And it was a health class, and there was on the cover of our health books that we had were these 2 guys who were like rock climbing or some shit, and it was all silhouette. And I mean, my buddies were laughing. I remember I drew these like, I made it look like the two guys were, having sex with each other on the cover of the book. We all started laughing about it, and my teacher walked over, and she was all just fucking so offended by the whole thing, and just thought that it was the worst thing in the world. Tried to get me kicked out of the class. I mean, she took it so fucking serious, and it was just this, give me a fucking break. Who gives a fuck? It's funny, laugh it up. Get a life. But she sent me to the principal's office, and him and I ended up having this talk that was kind of like this, where I remember at first he started giving me all this like bullshit, that he probably says to every kid that comes in his office, like, you're special, like, I've noticed you, you know how to lead kids, and I just wasn't feeling it. I was like, give me a fucking break, man, and he was going off about my future. He knew I wanted to make movies, and he's like, what do you draw dicks on books, that's gonna fuck up you making movies. And it's just like, give me a fucking break, man. Who the fuck are you to tell me this shit? And you're a fucking principal of fucking high school. Like, are you telling me this shit you wanted to do when you were a kid? Like, don't fucking give me this bullshit, this line of bullshit. I was like, this fucking book, that I drew some cocks on, it was drawn with a vis-a-vis marker, and I licked my finger, and the fucking dicks were rubbed right off the book, and he just started laughing, and it was great. And him and I ended up kind of sitting in his office for a good hour after that, just having this conversation, and we had this kind of interesting rapport, and he was a really cool guy. And he got me out of trouble too. He went and talked to the teacher and was like, Jordan, sorry, the dicks were rubbed off the book. They didn't ruin the book, because she was trying to get me to pay for a new book, and that whole thing was just kind of fucking stupid. But yeah, that's what this scene was based on. And I know when we shot it, that Alex and James, they had a good time, because it was kind of like their chance to duel with one another. So it was kind of fun to shoot. No continuity problem there. Sunglasses on, then they're off. What are you gonna do? But yeah, that was the whole idea for this movie. I wanted to kind of follow this kid around, and it's a few weeks before graduating high school, and all those things at that time that seem so, it's just your they're everything, your girlfriend, and where are you going to go to college, and are you going to finish this test, and is all this, and have that be the center of the story, and so really get to know this character who ends up getting just murdered in this senseless act of fucking violence that has nothing to do with him. Because to me, that was the reality of it. When these shootings happen, these school shootings, everyone always focuses on the shooter. It's like, who is this fucking kid? And it's like, well, some kid problems, some shit. My mom didn't hug him. I don't know. Like, you never know what leads to that. He was bullied. I mean, you never know. And so for me, that just wasn't interesting. Not that I'm not interested in what leads kids to do that, but I know it could be like a million different things. And I didn't want to say like, this is the cause of this. I didn't want to try to make a movie that preached, or tried to say that, school shootings happen because Marilyn Manson sings about the beautiful people. It's like, give me a fucking break. Or like the kid had a copy of Natural Born Killers. It's like all that is just so not the issue, and I didn't want to even pretend that I was able to figure out what it is that really makes these things happen, because I think it could be anything. And so I wanted to kind of keep that a mystery. because like here's a guy, you got Dylan, and he's actually, kind of cool with Jeremy. He kind of befriends him in class. I mean, yeah, I guess you can kind of take that scene a couple different ways. Like maybe he's taking advantage of this nerdy kid that actually brought in a paper or whatever. But I mean, the fact is he's nice to that guy. And he ends up being one of the guys that Jeremy murders first. He's actually the second. But, it's fucked up, but it's the reality of it. That was what I wanted. I wanted to kind of take people through that and make them feel that. I wanted this movie to make you think, and you can come up with your own reason why it happened. This was fucking a nightmare. We were getting ready to shoot. This is the last night of filming, and we had two different film stocks. One that was for outside that we were going to use here, and then inside, because we had to deal with all the fluorescent lights and shit in there. And right before we get ready to shoot this, and I wanted to spend a lot of time on this scene. It's a big scene. It's hard for Marnette and Alex, and I really wanted to give them a lot of room and opportunity to really get this scene right. And right before we went to go shoot it, Jeff walked over to me, and I could tell he had something bad to say, and he basically told me that we were pretty much out of film, and that I had enough film to get 1.5 takes from each side. And it was the worst fucking news I could have possibly gotten at that point, because so last night of shooting, everyone's all stoked and everything, everybody's excited. And I knew Marnette and Alex were a little worried about this scene because we hadn't really had enough time to rehearse it. And I know they'd worked it a little bit, but it was the kind of scene that, I knew was going to take time to shoot. And so I went to both of them and kind of tried to explain to them the situation. And I could tell it it wasn't something they wanted to hear, because they were trying to get in the headspace to get this, get it right. And I think it really bothered both of them. But, it's the fucking name of the game. I was out of film. Got to get it right. And I probably wasn't, in the greatest mood when I was talking to either of them. And that probably didn't help much either. But we did the best we could. And, I think I wound up getting 2 takes from each side. And, it turned out okay. I know they would have both liked to do it a few more times, and I probably would have too, but Sean, the editor, Sean Olsen, and I, we spent a lot of time just combing through those 4 takes, trying to create this, and just taking, little bits of moments from this take and maneuvering them with this one, and then going back and using a different take. And it was, over the 6 months that I think we spent editing this movie, this is a scene that we probably spent, just many, many days on, many hours. And I hated it, I hated it. But Sean was really, really patient, and he was able to, I think, pull it off. I think it turned out great. That's my mom. And her husband, Jeff, my stepdad, walked by right there. This is the last thing we shot. This was it. Punched in close. Boom. That was it. That was our martini for the entire film. This was another thing that sucked. This was another big scene. Really emotional. Hard for both of these actors, and Alex spent a lot of time trying to prepare for this, and Tom actually was struggling a little bit this day. I won't get into why, but he was. And So we had a hard enough time shooting the scene, and it really bothered me when we were done with it. I didn't feel like we really nailed it, and so to make matters worse, um, when we got our footage back 2 days later, when we got our dailies, half of this footage ended up being out of focus, and so, I mean, as if editing the scene wasn't already going to be a fucking nightmare. Or Sean was just dying trying to figure out what the fuck to do here. And, he actually pulled it off. And Tom and Alex are both pretty great. You get a good editor, you can kind of, many things that you can kind of get around, and this was something where Sean was really able to, because literally like half this footage is out of focus. I mean, some of this stuff still is that we used, but it ended up working out okay. Alex is great here. Yeah, this was like the big scene and shooting out. Yeah, and it was a struggle fucking getting this one. I mean, there was even a point when we first saw that our footage was so fucked up that, I was thinking I might have to even just cut the scene from the movie, and I was trying to. I remember like sitting at home with a bottle of fucking Jack Daniels in my underwear, going through the script, trying to figure out what this movie would be like without this scene. And I did not like what I was seeing, but yeah, so we were able to kind of Frankenstein it together and figure it out. And emotionally, I think it still works. God, and when we were casting this, fuck it. I didn't even start casting the movie until like 2 or 3 weeks before we had to start shooting, which is not a good way to do it. But we had some problems. I think financially, we were waiting for money to hit the bank, and so we couldn't start casting. And finally, when the money hit, I just flew right to LA, and Linda Phillips Paulo, who was our casting director, had like 4 days worth of auditions for me to sit in on, and it was so hard. It was so rushed, and I knew that really what I was so mostly concerned about was the boys, getting the guys right, and then getting the girlfriend and her friend, like that was really all that dynamic was what I was most concerned with. And I was pretty stoked about how it turned out. Very last minute, I think even like 4 days before filming, I didn't have a Dylan. I didn't have my main character, and it was just amazing that all this ended up just kind of coming together. And this was kind of random. I was shooting another scene across the street from this, and this whole deal with this bird. I saw that bird coming, and I was like, Jeff, shoot the bird, shoot the fucking bird, shoot the fucking bird. And he's like, what? I'm gonna shoot the fucking bird, and he just kind of like popped it out and zoomed in and like tagged a little bit of that bird. And I was like, what are you gonna do with that? Because I knew right after the scene we were shooting, I was gonna shoot this one. And in the script, it was just like he comes out, he waits, he sits, his girlfriend doesn't show up to pick him up, obviously, because he fucking, pulled the big dick movie the night before. And that was kind of it. And I always thought it was pretty boring. And when I saw that bird coming, I instantly was like, the motherfucker looks up and sees this bird. It was completely random, but it was really cool. And I get asked all the time if that's stock footage or if we bought that from UCLA or something. It's like, no, I fucking shot that big ass bird. It was rolling in, and Jeff was quick on his feet, just popped in and tagged it. And I ended up just incorporating it into that. And Alex was kind of like, what am I looking at? I'm like, there's going to be a big fucking bird. He's like, there's going to be a big bird. And I'm like, dude, there's going to be a huge fucking bird. You're going to look up and you're going to just see this giant bird. He's like, okay, a bird. It's like you with your fucking tea, whatever, man. Oh, this is rad. This was a little song that Max and Taylor actually kind of made up. And for whatever reason, this has always been one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I just thought it looked really natural. I love Max. He's just so funny in this scene, so natural. Max is a great little actor. He's been in a bunch of projects, but I hope he sticks with it because I love watching him in movies. I think he's great. Yeah, Taylor and Alex took this little bit pretty serious because it's the last time they talk, and because after this, Alex's character ends up getting killed, and I think Taylor and Alex kind of saw that because they're like best friends in this film, and they knew that it was an important scene, and they spent a lot of time on it, and I really liked what they did. They were great. All this shit. But it's getting high up at my party. Oh, yeah. A lot of that going on behind the scenes. Yeah, this was cool. When we this actual classroom that we used, it was one of my English teacher's classrooms in high school, and we were pretty much given free rein to shoot wherever we wanted. And I don't think that this teacher was particularly happy that we were given the keys to his room, where it's a lot of his shit in there. It's all his family pictures on the wall there, but I had remembered this classroom because he had really made it his own, and he had really, and I knew that I wouldn't have to fucking put anything up because it was just very lived in and cool, and yeah, I was excited to be able to shoot in his room because it's just a cool vibe in there. And that is Levi Berkeley, the composer of the film, and he also wrote a bunch of original music. And he happened to be, I think, didn't you just show up that day? Were you just kind of around, just hanging out? And I was like, hey, fuck it, why don't you sit down and we'll just throw you in here? Yeah, and he just kind of sat, because in the script, the end of the film wasn't quite as, there wasn't as much like parallel action going on in the script. And once we had kind of gotten into the meat of shooting this bit of the film, I had decided, like, this was actually taken from that opening Steadicam shot. And, so I kind of all of a sudden started making it something else. I knew I wanted to like cut back and forth, back to Jeremy, back to him and his girlfriend, back to the buddies, and kind of tie it all together. And I kind of made it all up on the spot. And what I thought would be interesting would be to have Levi, he's kind of like sitting there just fucking around on the guitar, and to use that to kind of tie everything together. You got this music that kind of plays through it all. And it was, I think the crew, it was kind of hard on the crew, but it was one of those things that I just realized would work, and I thought it'd be great. And so I just started shooting all this other shit. And, it was I was just kind of making some of it up as I went along, and script supervisor was fucking hating me. She fucking hated me the whole shoot, but what are you going to do? Get over it. And yeah, it was pretty cool. And I think Sean, once he started to get the footage in, and he was getting all these like random fucking rough notes from Rebecca, who was the script soup, and he got, I think really excited and really kind of grabbed all this footage. And I had an idea of what I wanted it to be, but I wasn't exactly sure how it was all going to cut together. So Sean, did like a pass through it, kind of going through all the footage, kind of the build up to the shooting, and he fucking nailed it. Like I was really excited. He got the back and forth. I mean, he still worked on it for a while, but his first pass was pretty close to what we ended up living with. It was pretty great. Dan Ayers, he was the name of our Steadicam guy, and he actually shot this too because he was still around. This was the day we did the big Steadicam shot, and we were gonna originally do that off of Dolly, but I was like, hey, fuck it, Dan, put your shit on. Let's just go knock this fucking take. And he was like, yeah, fuck it, man, cool, And he just kind of put all his gear on. We just went and knocked that one off. Now the short film I did that I called the standard version 0.15, dealt with more of Jeremy's character. And I think when I brought Nathan back and he read the script, I think he was kind of like, what the fuck is this? This is like, you don't get to know who I am, because he had all these like emotional scenes in the short. And I kind of tried to explain to him that, I didn't want to make that movie. That doesn't interest me. I was more interested in Dylan, and I think he was kind of pissed because he just like fucking, But I kind of just used that. I was like, all right, fuck it, be pissed. I won't talk to you, and that was kind of that. So it created I think kind of a distance between us, and I think it kind of worked for the movie. There wasn't a whole lot I had to say to him. I told him, just walk slow and be kind of militant. I put him in this like olive drab shirt, and I wanted him to just be very just normal in a creepy way. Yeah, God, shooting this was fucking nuts. So yeah, I had no storyboards or shot lists really even, for this whole thing. And it was very run and gun, very kind of making it up as I went along. I mean, it was scripted, but it was like Jeremy walks into the cafeteria, he looks and shoots, and so Jeff and I just sat down. I think we shot this entire sequence, including all this stuff upstairs in this classroom and all the hallway stuff. We shot it all in, probably like a day and a half or something. Do you remember? I think it was like a day and a half. I mean, no time at all. And we just fucking, we were just rocking and rolling, just shooting all this stuff. And halfway through the day, we found out that something had happened on our A camera, because we had 2 cameras this day, and the pressure plate in the camera wasn't in. So what that meant was that everything from A camera, which is where I was shooting all my money shots, was not going to work. And it was just like this fucking nightmare. We were going to have to reshoot this entire shooting sequence, which is, the biggest sequence in the movie. It was fucking hard to shoot to begin with, and we got to reshoot the whole fucking thing. It was horrible. And the guy that forgot to put the pressure plate in the camera, I think was, pretty depressed, and he was avoiding me, which he probably should have, because I was ready to throw him through a fucking window. And we were thinking about, there's Patrick again, by the way, from the pizzeria scene. It's this dual role. We got the footage, and I don't know how, but it all worked. The footage was all fine. Jeff, none of us could figure out how the fuck it did. He just said that his movie cam must be just so amazing that it was able to fucking, handle the rigors of not having a pressure plate in. But for whatever reason, all that footage worked, and whatever miracle or whatever, we fucking used it, and it was great. Yeah, this was hard to shoot. It was running around, getting all these extras to run and scream and not smile at the camera, and it was interesting. And I knew I wanted to avoid keeping it, too violent or show too much of it. I was more interested in the characters and where they were at, and hiding and running out the doors, and that to me was more interesting than Jeremy and his what he was doing particularly. So I tried not to show a whole lot of the violence there. Yeah, it's pretty fucked up right there. I should also probably say, when I wrote this script, I was in a pretty weird time in my life. Like here this is 4 years later when I'm sitting here recording this. I would probably not make this movie now. I'm at a different point in my life, but at that time I was really unhappy. I just gotten out of a relationship that kind of butchered me, and I was in this like dark spot, and I remember writing this, and I wrote it in like 4 days over the course of a month, and yeah, it ended up it's just this it was dark, and so it's interesting going back and watching this and trying to kind of revisit that time in my life when I wrote this. I think that's actually his mom right there. It's Bobby Brewer. Gotta love Bob. That's my boy. God, and all these, Brian was able to get all these emergency vehicles and shit to show up for free. And fuck, we gotta shoot this, and they were supposed to like be there till 6 or something, but they were actually told till 4, and I was in the middle of the school shooting all the shooting shit, and all of a sudden I get the word that all these cars are leaving, the cop cars are leaving. That's actually that fucking car leaving out of that shot, by the way, like to get the fuck out of there. I happened to capture it when I was flying the camera. Yeah, I had to shoot all that stuff in like 20 minutes. It was a fucking nightmare. But so anyway, that's the standard. It's been a long road getting it to where it is, and getting it to the point where we're gonna finally put it on DVD, and I'm pretty proud of it. So thanks for listening. Hope you learned something.